Yes, Ambassador, President Churkin. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News, and on behalf of the UN Correspondents Association, welcome and thank you. We're looking forward to many briefings during the month. My question is about the humanitarian resolution that you introduced on Monday. Do you have a timetable for the experts to look at it and a timetable for the overall? Was there good reaction within the Council? And then could you just update us on the kidnapped OSCE monitors? Thank you.
Well, of course, we are going to continue to work on our resolution. We believe that it would be very important to adopt this resolution and do it rapidly, because even though the main target of the resolution is to improve the possibility for humanitarian operation on the ground, it could play a role in stopping the violence in Ukraine. Unfortunately, if it is to continue, then not only we are going to have a deteriorating humanitarian situation, but we believe that the overall situation in Ukraine, political situation in Ukraine, will further deteriorate, and which would not bode well for the new leadership in that country. Unfortunately, as I briefly mentioned yesterday, our initial discussion with our colleagues in the Council was not encouraging to us, because some members of the Council seem to believe that the situation there can be settled by force. In fact, encourage Kiev to continue their punitive operation in eastern parts of Ukraine. We believe it's a grave mistake, and we believe that the Security Council, with its responsibility for international peace and security, should seek peaceful solutions to any issue which it might be coming in contact with. So to see colleagues who are basically saying, well, it's okay for Kiev to try to resolve things by force, that would be the easiest thing to do in any situation of conflict we are talking about. I think it's a fundamentally wrong attitude, both in general sense of the work of the Security Council and in terms of the impact of this attitude on the situation in Ukraine. But we'll continue our effort. Today we are having consultations at DPR level. So we hope that today, after receiving instructions from their capitals, our colleagues will leave us an opening for having this resolution go through and being adopted quickly by the Security Council.
Just on the OSCE.
Well, I don't have information. Of course, if somebody has been kidnapped or is missing, this is a disturbing situation, needs to be resolved. But I'll let our colleagues in OSCE handle it.
On non-political resolution that you mentioned in your introducing remarks, what does it mean actually?
And what? It means that there is, of course, a call to stop using force, to have ceasefire, and to allow humanitarian corridors, to allow those civilians who want to leave certain areas do that. So that would be kind of an encouragement, a demand, if you will, on the parties involved to be mindful of the need to respect the fact that the fighting is going on in populated areas. This is a heavily populated part of Ukraine. So this can really turn into something extremely dramatic. It is already quite dramatic, but if it were to continue and even escalate, and the past 4 hours, we have seen further escalation of the use of force by Kiev. This is a very erroneous approach to the problems of eastern Ukraine.
Sorry. Thank you, Ambassador. Could you get some details on the humanitarian crisis? Is there a food shortage? Is the fighting preventing food getting in? And secondly, is your foreign minister going to come to any of these meetings?
Unfortunately, Foreign Minister Lavrov is not planning at this point to come to New York in the course of May. Who knows? Maybe something will happen which will. I always would welcome this opportunity, but at this point, nothing is being planned. We have a lot of dramatic reports from eastern Ukraine. Your colleagues are working there on the ground. Among other things, just to give you one example, there is this town of Slavyansk, which has been which is being besieged by the Ukrainian military, and people cannot leave town because the roadblocks, checkpoints are all around the town. So the kids, the women who would like to take their kids out of the town, they are not able to do that. And this is a very disturbing situation. That's why, among other things, we are calling on establishing humanitarian corridors, and we are calling for the parties to respect international humanitarian law. Please.
Thank you. What do you think? How do you think that the Security Council will support finding a way to solve the problem or for political solution in Syria this month, especially after the elections which is going on in Syria?
As far as the political solution is concerned, at this point we are waiting for the Secretary General to appoint a successor to Mr. Brahimi. Unfortunately, as I talk to some of our Western colleagues, I see that there is this school of thought that there is no need to make this appointment now, that conditions do not exist anyway to make any progress in political settlement, and that something needs to be changed in the way the parties view the problem of political settlement in order for the appointment of the special representative of the Secretary General to be worthwhile. I believe it's a fundamentally flawed approach, because one of the purposes of the work of the special representative is to create conditions which would make it possible to move the talks between the government and the opposition forward. In the absence of this person, of the special representative, who is going to test the waters, who is going to encourage the parties to maybe make some shifts in their positions, which would then make it easier to conduct Geneva negotiations. In any case, we believe that after just 2 5-day rounds of talks, to say that things are so stalemated that there is no need to continue those negotiations, this is not to us entirely persuasive. We have always argued for the need to continue dialogue, to continue negotiations, and we hope that the Secretary General will find a good person and make the announcement as quickly as possible. Sir, over there. No, the one behind you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. You indicated that the Council will deal with a lot of African issues, and on the 19th of June you will take up peace and security in Africa. And you also indicated that you'll be meeting with the members of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. I'm going to ask you to put on your national hat for a moment. The continent of Africa has been asking for 2 seats, 2 permanent seats with a right of veto in the Council. Is your country prepared to grant that request?
Our position, first of all, we do have 3 countries from Africa on the Security Council even now. I mean, they are very well represented. At any given point, there are 3 African countries. Now we are fortunate to have Rwanda, Chad, and Nigeria, who are very actively
I'm sorry,
participating.
I'm talking about permanent seats.
I understand. I understand, sir, what you're talking about. Please believe me. As to the reform of the Security Council, Russia's position is very comfortable. We want everybody to be happy. If really, if the members of the United Nations arrive at a formula which can be supported by the vast majority of members of the United Nations, which would include this wish of the African Union, will not stand in the way. We don't want the membership of the United Nations to be split over the reform of the Security Council. I think for this organization, the worst case scenario is to have some kind of an angry falling out in the course of making decisions on the reform of the Security Council. It will not enhance the respect for the Security Council among members if it were to happen. So we need to continue negotiating patiently on this. Over there, the gentleman, yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Stefano Vaccara with the Radio Radicale in Rome and La Voce here in New York. Mr. Ambassador, you have the presidency of the Security Council. Just today, President Obama arrived in the Eastern Europe. He's in Poland, and we have a big pictures of him in front of an F-16, an American fighter jet in Poland. Somebody in your government had been saying a few weeks ago that this is a very dangerous situation at the moment in Eastern Europe. And I would like to know if you think that you entering to this presidency in the Security Council, if this particular trip of President Obama can help the situation, or it actually makes the situation even worse for what you're seeing today?
First of all, you are getting too far from my modest UN job. I don't want to venture into global issues. I think trip or no trip, the policy is important. If the policy is to sort of build up NATO, to take advantage of this dramatic situation in Ukraine in order to beef up the muscles of NATO. You know, I used to be liaison ambassador to NATO a while ago, and I keep following. You know, from time to time, they try to take advantage of certain situations in order to, like, get jump-started, because they keep looking for some kind of a new mission to perform. So if this crisis is used for that purpose, I think that is going to be detrimental for the overall international interaction. But let's go back to UN things, please.
Thanks, Ambassador. Yesterday you said that on the Ukraine draft that there were so many questions that it could take weeks to answer. If that's still the case after the meeting today, is there a possibility that Russia just might withdraw the draft? Or are you hoping that you might be able to do some kind of a deal where, in exchange for the support of other council members on the Ukraine draft, Russia might support a Chapter 7 resolution on Syria aid access?
Well, there is no going to be any connection. We'll figure out what to do with our draft after we have today's round of consultation. Maybe we'll do another round. I don't know. We'll see what our colleagues come back with instructions from capitals. On humanitarian situation, we continue. I can tell you, in my national capacity, we continue to work. I think that we do have our own draft, which has local peace arrangements as points of departure, and we believe it is something which the Security Council should encourage. It is something which Lakhdar Brahimi spoke positively of when he was in the Council last time. So we're having those discussions, and I think it may well be that we'll have a product.
So would you support Chapter 7?
No, we will not.
Mr. Churkin, Mr. President, of course, terrorism is auguring well on your program this month. There were reports that thousands of Libyans are returning to Libya from Syria. And there were also a letter from the Syrian mission telling about a warning of a new chemical attack, possible chemical attack. Probably you have received that letter by now, since they have distributed it. So how do you view the interlink between the crisis in the Middle East and with relation to the terrorism aspect of it? Well,
this, of course, is extremely dangerous new phenomenon which we have, particularly in the context of destabilization, which we have seen since the armed intervention into the situation in Libya. We have this country of instability from where we know weapons have been flowing. We have this huge area of instability going through Northern Africa, the Sahel region, Mali, Central African Republic, Somalia, and the Middle East, with the conflict in Syria and a very difficult situation in Iraq. So there are plenty of things to worry about. And in fact, I think I personally paid very close attention to the paragraph in the recent policy speech by President Obama, where he singled out the threat of terrorism as the first threat when he was referring to Syria. I think the first point in his remarks about Syria was dedicated to the threat of terrorism in Syria. So this is a situation which really is acquiring a very dangerous momentum. So when we heard a while ago that the war against terrorism is over, that I think could have been a clear miscalculation. This is going on and in a very disturbing manner. Sir, over there. Yes, yes, you are.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned that you're going to have a special annual meeting with the African Union, but it's not on the calendar and it's not in the footnotes. May I assume, therefore, that the date for it has yet to be set and we will be informed immediately whenever it is set by your competent press office?
The date is the 6th of June, but since it's not an official meeting, it's not on our program of work. And in fact, a stakeout is planned, which is going to be done jointly by the person who is going to be presiding, co-chairing this meeting together with me from the African Union around 1 p.m. on the 6th. You are welcome to come to the stakeout and hear our readout about the meeting. Matthew, I was wondering why you keep silent.
No. No. Thanks a lot. Sorry. On behalf of the Free UN Coalition for Access, hoping for a lot of stakeouts this month, especially after closed consultations. I wanted to ask about Odessa. Yesterday you'd said that the UN had given some form of a response and a less than full-fledged, something would be done, but less than full-fledged. Today they seem to clarify that basically it will be part of what I'm going to call the Simonovich report in June. Is there more to it? Is there more that you'd like them to do? Is there something more that you'll do? And also on the peacekeeping debate, I wanted to ask about drones. I know that there was some discussion in the Council when UAVs were approved for DRC. It turns out that the UN is now soliciting drones to be based in northern Mali. They've done a solicitation of interest. The bidding is closed, and I wanted to know, has the Council given any further approval? Has it reviewed the DRC drone, and if not, why are they soliciting drones?
Well, first of all, on the investigation, I did briefly mention that yesterday that the United Nations, after the letter which was written by Sergei Lavrov, our foreign minister, to the Secretary General on May 19, they took this matter very seriously. Unfortunately, they could not put a kind of an international full-fledged investigation together, which would have been our preference, but they did assure us that they were looking at this matter very carefully. And indeed, you are revealing one of the secrets I didn't want to reveal yesterday, that we expect that Mr. Simonovich's next report will include something on this. How satisfactory it's going to be, it remains to be seen, because what we see now in Ukraine is several different investigations and complaints that there are people who are interested in derailing those investigations, not really interested in having the truth coming through, which is extremely disturbing, because there are also clear signs that this outrage, the massacre in Odessa, did not happen without approval and direction from Kiev. So we really need to get to the bottom of it. Drones. Well, our position, Russia's position, is that first we need to see how they work in DRC, and then apply it to other areas if necessary. This issue is going to be among those which will be discussed, I'm sure, at our open debate on the 11th. I don't know if the Security Council has to approve every drone deployment in every particular area, but certainly we would expect the Secretariat to tell us about their experiences in DRC before they make any further practical steps in deploying drones in other areas of operation. Sir?
Yes. Thank you.
No, not you actually, but another gentleman. You will be next, please. Oh, go ahead. No,
it's me, right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. My question about the quartet and the Middle East peace process. Russia is very bold when it comes to every issue in the world, except when it comes to the quartet and the efforts to have a state for Palestinian, an independent Palestinian state. You are very passive. The whole quartet is like what the Egyptian...
Do you have a question, or is it just going to be criticism of Russia?
No, I want you to say if that's on your agenda. I want you to see what you're going to be doing for the peace process in the Middle East, since it reached a deadline. And one party was blamed for the deadline. So what are you going to be doing about that?
Well, first of all, my other colleagues are dealing from the Russian diplomatic service, from the foreign ministry, are dealing with the quartet matters. But we do refer to the quartet every time we discuss the Middle East and the Israeli-Palestinian talks in the Security Council, which we do monthly. And there is going to be another discussion this month. So you can be assured that in my remarks, I'll say that we need to take greater advantage of the possibilities of the quartet. We think it's an important instrument, especially if it were to establish a closer working relationship with the Arab League, which, with the Arab Peace Initiative, should play a more active role. Unfortunately, and this is a story we have repeatedly seen over the years. Actually, in my conversations with our American colleagues, I ask this question from time to time, why they do that. Because over the years, they monopolize the talks between the Israelis and the Palestinians and tell the world that, like, in 9 months' time, something will be born out of it, and then the whole thing falls through. So they have to take responsibility then for this failure, and not just make another promise of kind of a secretive negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians, which will fail again. So we do believe that the quartet should be better utilized, and we hope at some point that could be achieved. Please, yes.
Ambassador, are you able to describe the dynamics between yourselves and the other P5 members in Council? What are the levels of goodwill, and how will that influence the prospects of success of this humanitarian resolution on Ukraine?
Dynamics is very good. I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but
well, I'm talking about your vetoes on Syria and the exchanges.
No, it's different. It's different. There are certain situations which we confronted when there were products which Russia and China did not find acceptable. But we work very closely all the time. So I'm very pleased about our dynamics. You, sir, please. Yes. And then I'll come to you. Now your turn. Okay, your turn, please.
Okay. I'll go. Thank you, Ambassador. I just want to ask you about the talks with Iran, in which the United Nations nuclear inspector is saying are taking a positive turn. So what is the position, your position on it? Are the talks, in fact, going to produce any results, or is it just they're just going to be looking at the American reaction and the Israeli reaction to make it?
You know what? One of my greatest desires, professional ambitions here in the United Nations, is to see a day when we'll have a resolution in the Security Council lifting all the resolutions, all the sanctions which we imposed on Iran over its nuclear program in 4 sanctions resolutions which we adopted starting, I think, 2006. Again, I would rather get closer to United Nations matters, but from what I know, the talks have been going well, but not without problems. They are supposed to reach agreement by the 20th of July. I hope it happens. I can assure you that Russian diplomats are working extremely hard to see that happening. We'll see what the outcome is going to be. Some constructive approaches need to be exercised by our colleagues in the Six, and of course also by the Iranians. Sir, now to you. And then, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now that the United States, in fact, President Obama has clearly laid out plans to end combat operations in Afghanistan and subsequently withdraw from Afghanistan, is the Security Council now going to focus on the situation post-American withdrawal?
Yes, I think that this is something which needs to be done, and I hope that when we discuss UNAMA, this UN presence in Afghanistan, the situation in Afghanistan on the 25th of June, we'll be looking also to the next stage. Certainly Russia has a lot of worries about what is going to come after the withdrawal. We have our concerns about a limit of time limit for those withdrawals, the limits which are not necessarily connected with the actual situation on the ground. We are critical of the work which has been done so far by multinational military presence, NATO-led presence in Afghanistan. In our view, they have not clearly performed, they have not been able to fulfill their mandate, and they are leaving the country in a situation of considerable military turmoil. We hope they report to the Council before they wrap up their presence, and we'll have to think of what the international community can do in the future, what the United Nations will be able to do in the future to help the people of Afghanistan to improve the situation. Shall we go to the, who is, you, sir, in white shirt, please.
Thank you. Mr. Ambassador, which kind of similarities do you see the situations in Syria and Ukraine? And do you think that the humanitarian corridor needs necessary in Syria like the Ukraine? Thank you.
Well, first of all, I don't see similarities there. Those are completely different situations with completely different history. And of course, I hope in Ukraine things are going to be resolved very quickly, and that there's not going to be dragged out use of military force. And this is what Russia is trying to accomplish. Humanitarian corridors, we believe that certainly they could be used in Syria as well. And this is actually one of the elements of our resolution which is encouraging the local peace arrangements, because those local peace arrangements can envisage humanitarian corridors. Everything which can be usefully and really realistically done in order to improve the humanitarian situation in Syria, Russia is prepared to support. And we have worked in every format which has been there in order to make that happen. We have been working in not only here in the United Nations, but in the high-level humanitarian group, which was set up by Valery Amos in Geneva. It wasn't a success because, from our point of view, only Russia was prepared to contribute specifically, saying what we are doing in our contacts with the government and through other means in order to help, has agreed to join that group. That was the final hurdle in putting this group together. So we are looking forward to those meetings and very pragmatic discussion of what can be done by the government and various opposition groups in order to help the delivery of humanitarian assistance to the people of Syria. Ma'am, пожалуйста.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much. Victoria Kupchinetsky, Voice of America, Russian Service. I have two questions. What was the initial reaction of the Ukrainian side to your proposition, to your resolution, humanitarian resolution? Are you satisfied with their reaction, and do you expect that they will be cooperating on this resolution? And the second part of my question is, do you expect that the situation in eastern Ukraine might change dramatically after the inauguration of the president-elect of Ukraine on June 7th?
Well, first of all, I frankly, I did not really closely follow the reaction of the Ukrainian delegation. If they were interested in this, in supporting this, I think they could have placed a call to us, and that would have made our job in the Security Council much easier, because then we could be more effective in canvassing the support of other members of the Security Council. As to this larger issue, again, it's not entirely a UN issue. We were told that after his election on May 25, things were going to improve. But unfortunately, the situation kept deteriorating, only greater use of force, and Mr. Poroshenko made some statements about the need to intensify the military operation in eastern Ukraine. Of course, we hope that after he is sworn in, something different is going to come from him, because if they continue to pursue this military operation, this is going to be a very bad start for his presidency, for the Ukraine, very bad start, and will make his job much more difficult. If he is really interested in preserving, strengthening sovereignty and territorial integrity of the country, to create, to have the population united around his presidency, that would be a very poor start for him. Please.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Two questions on Syria. You made a very forceful appeal for a new political envoy. There are some Syrians in the government who seem to indicate that they feel that a military victory is possible. And I wonder whether Russia believes that, in fact, a military victory is possible, or whether there must be a political solution. And on the humanitarian issue, the draft resolution presented by Australia, and Luxembourg calls specifically for the authorization to deliver humanitarian aid at 4 border crossings, going across 4 border crossings. Is that something that Russia supports?
The first question, please. What
was about the political.
I mean, of course. Well, of course, yes. Of course, we believe that there is a need for a political settlement. That's why we believe that time should not be wasted, and the political process needs to be continued as quickly as possible. And now, on this draft which you referred to, I keep marveling at the level of information which some people have. I mean, this draft has not been formally introduced to the Security Council. Of course, there are some discussions. I don't want to go into details, but maybe one word of clarification. People ask, and I think even today this question was briefly raised, Chapter 7 or no Chapter 7. Before you go into details of discussing anything, you need to understand the concept. You need to understand some fundamental things. First of all, Chapter 7 for humanitarian operation, you need to understand that you are crossing a very important threshold for UN humanitarian operations, which are supposed to be done in cooperation with the government of the country you're helping. Chapter 7 is not about cooperation, it's about imposition. The second thing you need to understand, how things will work in reality. If you talk about Syria, do you expect cooperation of the government if you believe that it's a Chapter 7 kind of a thing and the humanitarian agencies can do whatever they want? I think that the cooperation from the Syrian government might be problematic under such circumstances. And therefore, the conditions for the work of humanitarian agencies will deteriorate rather than improve. Now, you mentioned some border crossing. Again, I don't want to start a discussion about any text, but we need also to see the thing conceptually. We are talking about border crossings between Syria and a number of other countries, Turkey, Iraq, Jordan. What about them? Are they also going to be obligated under Chapter 7 to open their borders for humanitarian supplies? So if you take this approach, it means that not only are you requiring that Syria should give up its sovereignty over its borders, but also the neighboring countries do that. And I, for example, asked an ambassador, a colleague from one of those neighboring countries, what is going to be your attitude? Are you prepared to say that your country is giving up its sovereignty over its own border with Syria? His answer was, well, if we will have to close this border, we'll write a letter to the Security Council. But Chapter 7 does not work this way. Either you give up your sovereignty as a Chapter 7 situation, but then that has to be done, not only by Syria, but its neighboring countries. Or anybody can write a letter, including the Syrian government, and say, there are circumstances for which, because of which we cannot allow this to happen. So, before we go into drafting, we need to understand the consequences, the fundamental aspects, and whether, in fact, it is going to help the situation, improve the situation on the ground for humanitarian agencies and for the Syrian population in terms of receiving actual humanitarian assistance, please.
I have 2 questions. One about Syria after the elections of President Assad, how the United Nations will be dealing with that, especially that the Council is split and the Secretary General doesn't welcome the election. Another thing, that 5 countries or 5 sides have sent envoys to Libya on top of the UN envoy. Is Russia going to send an envoy to Libya since, well, it's not becoming a United Nations issue anymore?
No, it is. It is very much a United Nations issue, and we are going to have a discussion on Libya. It's a United Nations issue from many points of view because, well, first of all, we do have a UN mission there, and we'll hear a report from the head of the mission about what is going on there. And secondly, of course, we are disturbed by what is going on. I mean, the situation keeps deteriorating. I had a conversation some time ago, several weeks ago, with a very distinguished UN person, a lady who is, I'm not going to describe, to refer to her name or position, but a former foreign minister of an African country, now playing an important role here in the United Nations. And she told me, I'd been, why are you laughing? I'm sorry? You can figure out. No, I'd like to keep you guessing. You keep you guessing, yes. And she told me too many tips for you maybe. But anyway, she said I know Libya very well. I've been there many times as foreign minister, and now in her job she's also like looking into Libya, visited Libya. She said in every aspect of life, the situation there is much worse than it used to be under Gaddafi. This is her assessment. So of course it's very troubling, because this is not what we're told is going to happen after this humanitarian intervention, the Security Council sanctions in 2011. So it will have to be very highly on our agenda. We do have our embassy there. Sending somebody else, I don't know about such plans. Please.
About the presidential election in Syria?
Well, the presidential election, I think we need to take things in a stride. You know, different people may have different views about those elections, but we need to continue our efforts. We know that we need to have a political settlement. We know that we do have Geneva communique. We do expect a special representative to be appointed. So whatever happens, we need to continue working. And I think that Lakhdar Brahimi, even though he did have some concerns about those elections, he did not regard them as some kind of obstacle which should create some impossible problems for the political effort, which is difficult enough as it is. Please.
Ambassador, just to follow up on the Syria aid resolution. Considering that the resolution passed in February by the Council is effectively being ignored by the parties on the ground, what action do you think the Security Council should now take?
We're having our discussions, we're making our proposals, we're working on it, so let's hope the Security Council can make an input. Ma'am, please.
Russia has been such a staunch defender of national sovereignty and territorial integrity in the Council, whether it's Syria or many other places. I'm wondering if you're willing to include a recognition of Ukraine's national sovereignty, territorial integrity, and all of that in your humanitarian resolution.
Well, no, this is not something which is in the humanitarian resolution. We are staunch defenders of international law in its entirety, which includes the right to self-determination.
But isn't that hypocritical if it's...
No, it's not. Who is...
Could you explain?
Please.
How?
Please.
I just wanted to ask, in the thematic debate, do you think that the topic of extending protection of civilians mandate and more PKO missions will be discussed? And do you intend to have UN PKO protection of civilians mandate discussed with the AU delegates when they come to New York?
Could be. I cannot foresee what actually. Please.
First of all, two quick questions. One, if that mic works. One on what you said before about Iran, the need to remove all sanctions. You are looking forward to the day. Should it also be because of the interim agreement that the Security Council, even before that, should remove the demand of Iran to suspend all enrichment? And secondly, just to get to the second question, there's UNDOF in there. Do you think that, are you concerned that the dispute in Syria will spill into the Golan Heights and therefore there should be a larger UNDOF presence?
Well, on the first thing, of course, it's a matter of negotiations. This is what the timing and how things are going to happen, when and under what conditions. It's a subject of negotiations. And yes, I mean, the situation is in the Golan Heights is disturbing because there is increased activity of armed opposition groups. And this is a situation which was not envisaged when UNDOF was established. Are we going to be able to strengthen the mandate of UNDOF? I think it's sort of, I would not be holding my breath expecting that, but this is something which is going to be, I think, addressed by some members of the Council in the course of the discussion. Let's do two more questions. The gentleman, yes, please. No.
Thank you, Ambassador. Could you explain how you're dealing with the possible nuclear test by North Korea and the ballistic missile launches in the past that violates the Security Council resolution?
I hope they will not happen. If they will, I hope they will not. Then, of course, the Security Council will react.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Just a quick follow-up on the Syria resolution before. There was an initiative by the French that they were looking to move, whether realistic or not, to deprive the Permanent Five of their veto power when it comes to that kind of the resolution. I haven't heard, probably I missed that. Can you address that? Would Russia agree on that? And also on the ICTY, you was criticizing ICTY in the past for long prolongations, big money spent. What can you say now? Thank you.
I think they keep working. They should have closed their operation a long time ago. That's for sure. I mean, to me, like 20 years, it's a long period of time. And some people are there for 10 years or more without sentencing. This is something is wrong about this system, in my view. Now, on this issue of the French initiative, we're against it. We're against everything which is tampering with the veto powers of the Security Council. And this is a situation which sort of may seem attractive to the public, mass atrocities, whatever. But let me give you one example. And of course, in history, you cannot really answer questions in history. U.S. and U.K. invasion of Iraq. Thousands of, hundreds of thousands killed, misplacement, refugees, IDPs, etc., etc. Under such circumstances, would it apply? Would, under the French formula, the Security Council would be able to vote and to get the U.S. and U.K. forces out of Iraq? What do you think? So it's not as easy as one might think, who wants to get some populist popularity. Please. I'm referring to the interests of Permanent Five, which are involved in this, and I'm sure that all other members of P5 are not enthusiastic about this proposal, whether they say it or not.
Renzo Cianfanelli is Italianska Gazzetta Carriera della Sera, in English. Going back to Eurasia, there is a report coming from Moscow saying that Pakistan will receive some Russian attack helicopters.
I know nothing about it. Sorry, I know nothing about it. Sir.
Hi, Ambassador Churkin. Thank you. We're hearing from...
No, not you. The one in the far corner. In the far corner.
So, just a question about the peacekeeping operation, New Trends. The United Nations has one of the biggest army in the world today. Could you elaborate what your vision on these new trends should be?
No, we have confronted the challenges, but we need to be clear about where we are going. And there are concerns about some traditional contributors of peacekeeping forces that they may be getting more than they bargained for when they send their forces. This is a situation in DRC where we authorized the mandate, more robust mandate of intervention brigade. So we need to have clarity and we need to sort things out, both practical and legal repercussions of what we are doing. And that's why I think this debate is going to be important. Since you thanked me already, please go ahead.
Спасибо большое. Можно задать вопрос?
Пожалуйста.
Thank you. My question relates to, we're hearing among some diplomats here in New York and in Vienna that Russia's position vis-a-vis Syria and Iran's nuclear program and the negotiations is getting harder because of Western opposition to Russian policy in Ukraine. Can you speak to these claims?
No impact at all. No impact. Please, ma'am.
Thank you. And my question is, what actions could the Security Council take to help bring about reconciliation in the Ukraine? And is there something that should happen in the Security Council so reconciliation is a piece of the spirit of the way disputes get treated instead of so hostilely?
Well, the Security Council can play a role, could have played a role, and as you know, in the course of our now 17 discussions of Ukraine and the Security Council, time and again we have been calling on the members of the Security Council to appeal for the end of violence. The ball is mostly in the court of the OSCE, as you know, and there is the Geneva statement, which was produced by Russia, United States, European Union, and Ukraine, and there is the OSCE roadmap. But the Security Council, of course, could play a role. It could play a role by adopting our resolution, the one we introduced yesterday to stop violence improve the humanitarian situation and create conditions for political dialogue in Ukraine. But so far, unfortunately, the Security Council is split, so it's not playing a role it should. We even tried, if you recall, at one of the discussions we had in the open chamber in the Security Council. Towards the end of the discussion, I simply tried to invite the members of the Council to, to call to put an end to violence. And later on, the presidency, the Republic of Korean presidency, produced one line, something like, let's stop violence. And even that was not acceptable to our Western colleagues. So under those circumstances, it's very hard to see the Council play a constructive role. Please.
Thank you, Ambassador. Coming back to Syria, so many member states, including UN, say that this Syrian election, which is going on, would be the great obstacle for the Geneva process and also to the political solution you mentioned. So could you clarify Russian position?
I believe I already mentioned that. We don't see it that way. We don't see it that way. There are so many circumstances. Some of them may be seen as helping the political process. Some of them may be seen as impeding the political process. To me, for example, the fact that this meeting, the last one they have of this group of London 11 or whatever, the supporters of the opposition, in their document, they didn't even mention the political process. That was very disturbing. During our debate in the Council, when we were discussing the French ICC draft resolution, the French ambassador and some others were saying the political process is over. That, to me, is that kind of an attitude is an impediment to political process. But an election, some people can complain about it, some may approve it, but the main thing is to keep going. Sir.
Thank you, Ambassador. What is the position of your government with regard to the newly established Palestinian government?
We support the government, and the Foreign Ministry made a statement today about it.
On Syria, I wanted
How long do you want to go on?
Right. No, I didn't know there'd be a second round, so.
We have so many stories.
Yeah. One straightforward and one that you might or may not answer. What's Russia's position on a successor to Brahimi? Should he be a joint representative with the Arab League, do you believe? And also, do you have any thoughts or views of this trade between the American soldier in Afghanistan and the release of the 5 Taliban? Does it implicate that Security Council resolution about not negotiating with terrorists?
On the second one, I'm not prepared to comment. On the first one, it should be a good person first of all. And secondly, as you've seen, the work which has been done by Mr. Brahimi, he was heavily supported by the United Nations, not necessarily so by the second part of his mandate. So there is a point of view that it should be just a UN representative. I personally would support it. I mean, from the outset, I can tell you frankly, given the position which the Arab League was taking on Syria at that time, expelling Syria from its ranks, etc., I personally didn't see how that would work. And the first time we heard the news in P5 meeting with General Secretary Ban and Kofi Annan, I did say that it did not sound to me as a great idea to have this joint status of the special representative. Please.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the Special Tribunal of Lebanon, which was passed under Chapter 7 by the Security Council. Now it seems their main preoccupation is to chase journalists in Lebanon, and 2 chief journalists...
I don't know enough about the work of this tribunal. I'm sorry. Please.
Ambassador, you and everyone else say there should be a political solution. The place is awash with arms. Why not begin with in Syria? Why not begin with an arms embargo, both the Russian arms to the government and wherever else one can stop them?
I think 2.5 years ago, President Putin had a meeting with President Hollande of France, and the President of France asked that question. President Putin said that it's not a verbatim rendition of what President Putin said, but anyway, the essence of his response. We would be prepared to consider that if you explain to us how we are going to stop the flow of arms to armed opposition groups. This is the core issue for us. We had an arms embargo in Libya, Resolution 1970, which was used in order to cut off not just arms, but everything which could be cut off in terms of supplies to the Libyan government, but the arms were flowing freely to armed opposition groups. We had a moment in the Security Council, for instance, when towards the end of the first term of President Obama, I was watching television and I saw the Secretary of State of the United States in the House testifying to some committee, and one of the members of that committee said that according to his information, 20,000 tons of weapons were brought into Libya by Qatar with the support of the United States, and he requested written information from the State Department. The Secretary of State nodded. So I said, well, since you are going to provide that information anyway, please give us a copy, because you are supposed to inform the Sanctions Committee about those things. We never got the copy. We never got any explanation from anybody. So we don't want to find ourselves in this position. We never got any explanation how we would be assured that weapons will not be given to various armed opposition groups operating in Syria.
On this,
no, not you. The other, yes, the gentleman at the very back of the room.
All right, thank you. You're holding the presidency of a body of the United Nations that has been under attack by many since the get-go as being a structurally flawed body. Would you agree with that? And if you do, what solutions do you propose?
No, I don't. I think it's a very effective, very important body. Another gentleman at the back.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I'm Christopher Ronneberg with the Norwegian newspaper Aftenposten. You mentioned earlier today that you were concerned about the what happened in Odessa and to get to the bottom of that. Tomorrow it's 25 years since the massacre in Beijing. Would this be an opportune moment to bring that up to the, or to take initiative to bring it to the ICC?
Not for me. Please, ma'am.
I wondered, going up the different tribunals, if you'll also look at what's happening with the ICC, particularly that it's the prosecutor who brings what's happening, makes the report to the Security Council. And in Libya, there have been decisions of the ICC that Libya doesn't go along with in any way. And so I'm wondering if there's some way of reviewing that experience so it's not to have that happen in other places, and and just have it go merrily along, and if there's a way to deal with that.
We do have some concerns about the way ICC operates. Generally, I mean, Russia did sign the Rome Statute. We have not ratified it, but anyway, we are supportive of sort of the idea of international justice. But there are some serious issues, and that's why from time to time we need to exchange our views about it. We need to discuss things. And then maybe some improvements will happen. Let's go for a last question, please. Madam President, please. I hope that you will, and that will end it, yes.
I hope it's worthy. I just was wondering, Ambassador, if you've had some more informal conversations back channel with Ambassador Power about the Ukraine resolution, or with Ambassador Sergeyev about what's next in Ukraine.
I'm not commenting about back channel stuff. Thank you very much. Thank you.